Because the last thing you want to be doing is be 3 beers down on a fun night and a tenant rings you saying, Aaron, Chris has taken some of my margarine. Yes, Chris is that kind of guy who takes people's margarine. Okay, let's begin by saying Happy New Year to every single person who stumbled across this video. And I sincerely hope that this year is so much better than last year. But let's move on to today's video, where I'm going to be running through the following. So feel free to navigate whatever part you want. And of course, I've also done the timestamps as well, just to make your life a little bit easier. So before we begin, and you guys obviously smash that like button and subscribe, my goal for today is for you to leave knowing something, learning something that you never knew before, and it's cost you nothing other than a simple smash of that button. Now, unless you accidentally stumbled across this video, you're likely looking at investing in HMOs, and you may be thinking, is this the right strategy for me in 2021? You've heard the stories, possibly seen the Facebook statuses of people claiming to make thousands and thousands of pounds a month. Is it possible? Yeah. Are all the stories correct though? No, but I'll explain that further in this video. But I will say a HMO in the right place for the right tenant profile and at the right price can definitely provide a great ROI or a monthly income, depending on how you look at your deals. So with that, you could probably become financially free if you got yourself the right one. On the flip side, and I need to tell you this, you could also lose a lot of hair, drive yourself mad and never want to invest in property again if you get yourself the wrong one. So stay tuned for this video because hopefully it's going to help you not make simple mistakes. So let's get started. Number one, what is a HMO? So a HMO is a house of multiple occupancy, and in order for a house to be considered a HMO, the following must apply. Firstly, it must have at least 3 tenants that live there, a toilet, bathroom or kitchen facilities that are shared with another tenant. And for larger HMOs, then the following must apply. At least 5 tenants live there, forming more than one household. A toilet, bathroom or kitchen facilities are shared with another tenant. Now, if you're interested in becoming a HMO landlord, you have to adhere to standards and obligations. And if anyone's thinking, I'll just buy one and pass it on to a managing agent, then please listen up. You, i.e. the HMO landlord, are required to meet the standards and obligations. If you don't adhere to them, then you are going to be the one that they're going to throw in front of the judge if something goes wrong, risking everything, not that agent. So you need to know this stuff. And the basic outlines of this can be found in a link I've just put down below from the shelter website. So check the description out after this. And alongside this, you also need to have your local council on side as well. So they may have their own specific requirements that you need to abide by and do. So make sure you're in conversations with them. Now finally, all large HMOs will need a license from the local council. So please don't forget that too. I hope you're taking notes, by the way. Now that moves me on nicely to my second point, my experience in HMOs. Now the chances are you probably don't care about my HMO experiences, and that's okay. I don't really care either. But the reason I mentioned the point about larger HMOs needing a license and knowing about this is because I've actually bought, renovated and sold HMOs myself. I haven't just read the book and started doing videos. So unlike some people you'll see who just talk about it and then sell courses on it and even coach about it, without actually doing it, I hope the fact that I've actually been there, done it, worn the t-shirt gives you some comfort in knowing my experiences kind of valid. So anyway, I sold my HMO in 2018 and I made a promise that I don't want to invest in HMOs anymore, but it still could be right for you. But the reason I mentioned that point is because if I forgot something or something new's come about in the last few years, my apologies. But please do me a favor and write it in the comments down below so anyone watching this video can also learn from it. I'm not an expert, I'm just somebody sharing my experience, documenting it and trying to help you guys learn as much as possible without paying for it. In addition, I've also purchased a 4-bedroom HMO and a 9-bed HMO that needed to be renovated. And I've renovated HMOs for clients as well as a project manager, which is pretty much what I do. That included literally everything from procuring materials, labour, working with the councils to getting things over the line. Moving on, so with this experience, I will say as much as HMOs were able to provide a good chunk of cash flow to me initially and actually justified me giving up my job, they were pretty stressful. In fact, if you want to skip over my life and HMO problems, move very quickly to point 3. But here's 2 things that happened to me that may be of use to you if HMOs is something you're thinking about. The first one was voids. You see, unlike buy-to-lets, in my experience, the HMO turnover is a lot more frequent. And if it's in a more competitive area, filling them can take longer than 4 weeks, which is a month. And this really needs to be reflected in the income. And it's often ignored when people boast about how much their HMOs make a month. Yes, a good month, I was close to around £800. I'll put the figures up in a bit. On the 4-bed HMO, which by the way I don't recommend you getting. I think 4 bedrooms are too small and you really need to bank on not having no voids. And voids was something that I was getting, so it actually brought down my cash flow to around £500 net a month. And for all the stress and headache that I had, I now sit in hindsight and think I should have just got 2 buy-to-lets, because that way I wouldn't have sold it, plus they'd be going up in value and life would be a lot less stressful. And the second point was getting tenants in place is not just about someone who can pay the rent. I understand when times are hard and you want to get your rooms filled, but you have to think about the dynamics of the house and how will this play out. For example, let's think of an example. Okay, let's say we got 5 middle-aged men all into their sports, for example, and you need to fill the 6th room of your 6-bed HMO. It's probably not a good idea to put a lady in there who loves her peace and quiet in her late 50s. Now, I kind of completely made that up on the spot, and there's probably better examples out there, but it really does matter. I had some DSS in mind and some professionals, and sadly there was a constant moan about the other party, so dynamics is crucial. Moving on to point 3, how to analyze a HMO deal. Now, analysing a HMO is crucial to know your ROI, which is a preferred method I use when investing and calculating the cost and how much cash I'm going to potentially be making that year. Now, this is the deal analyzer that I use, which I'll share with you, providing you hit that like button and stick around to the end. If you ain't doing that, you ain't getting it, because I'm going to be telling you how you've got to get it. Now, although these aren't hard to knock up and you can probably add, remove, or even change everything on this is very useful. And this was actually one sent to me by a friend, and I just kind of remixed it myself. But the most important thing with this is the ROI. You see, I like to work on this because it tells me exactly how hard my money is working for me. The ROI, i.e. the return on investment, is basically letting you know how much % per year you are getting back from your initial cash investment. Now, 25% is kind of the lowest I'd ever go to, unless something too good to be true really popped up. 25% is kind of my threshold. Moving on to point number 4, the important things your HMO needs. So there's no secrets here, regardless of how many people try and market or sell to you and saying, you know, you really need these secrets. There aren't any. So one of the things I need you to do is, when you're thinking about HMOs, consider your target audience first. For example, if you're looking to have a HMO in an area where rents are relatively high, working professionals perhaps, then you may need to potentially look at en-suites. In fact, most HMOs nowadays have en-suites, at least the ones who don't have many voids. Although my 4-bed actually didn't. But for that HMO, having a downstairs toilet and a shared bathroom, shower and toilet upstairs was actually enough. Plus I also had 3 friends in there too at one time, so I think that kind of helped it. Other things it needs to have, and again, add anything if I miss it down below, because like I said, my brain only has so much capacity, so if I miss something I apologize, but please add it in so other people can benefit from it. The first is broadband, and it needs to be bloody quick, like quick. Optic fiber, I don't know, I literally just ring them and say, give me the quickest one, because nothing will wind up your tenants more than slower internet. In fact, I'm probably the same. It's probably just a human thing. I don't even know how I used to survive those dial-up days. You know, those times where you're in the middle of this MSN chat, you know, nudging people, poking people, adding all your friends in, then all of a sudden your mom picks up the phone. Number 2, parking. Have a think if your clients are going to be needing their own spaces, i.e. car spaces. For example, would students need their own space? Likely not. However, if they're all working professionals and that's your clientele that you're aiming for, they most likely will. The third point is fire doors, fire extinguishers, interlinked smoke alarms, etc. are all important. So when you're working with building control, just do what they say. Don't try and be clever. Don't try and tell them what you're going to do or what you think is good. Get their assistance, make them feel important, and make sure that you get their sign off. That's going to be the most important thing. The fourth, which is a godsend, is get yourself a good cleaner. Now, this was literally my saving grace. My cleaner, bless her, was able to do the smoke alarm test, inventory checks, odd random tasks that needed to be done, but also more importantly, she kept it clean. And having 4 guys in my house, at least initially, you'd think it would have been crazy. But, well, actually it wasn't, to be fair to him. However, having her there just to come in on a weekly basis, just to show that I cared about the property, it kind of made them care more about it as well. So that's a really, really important point. And number 5, a what you need to know sheet. Okay, I just totally made that up. But this is a sheet that can save your life. And on this sheet, basically you need simple things like how to use the washing machine. Look, us guys don't normally know that kind of stuff. What to do in case of an emergency, handyman numbers, when to take out the bins, all these simple little things. Whose cupboard space is whose for each room. Very, very simple but important things. Basically, you need stuff there that you need to think, what are people going to ring me about? What are people going to call me about? it'll make your life less stressful. Because one thing I did later into my HMO landlord experience was also set some rules in regards to when they can call me. Because the last thing you want to be doing is be 3 beers down on a fun night and a tenant rings you saying, Aaron, Chris has taken some of my margarine. Yes, Chris is that kind of guy who takes people's margarine. So make sure you ensure you set yourself boundaries while still being proactive to anything that they need that can affect their living standards. You want to make sure that they're safe as well. So you don't just want to completely ignore them for a week just because you don't want to look after them. Number 6, knowing where to advertise. You can advertise for free on places like Spareroom, Gumtree, OpenRent, and Facebook Marketplace as well. Or is it just Facebook? It's somewhere on Facebook. And myself personally, I've also used Rightmove as well, and I paid a little bit for it, and that actually worked out pretty well too. The key is to try and think about, where are your tenants going to be looking? Where would that person be Googling? And basically put your ad there. I also kept a hold of tenants who had applied but didn't get the room, either due to it being filled or a tenant changing their mind. And this was really important because if I was getting a turnover, I could then go back and ask them if they needed a room, or even ask if they knew somebody else who needed one too. The final point, number 5. So how do we find HMOs? So HMOs, when I was getting excited by them, were pretty easy to find. I initially got one, my first one, from a sourcer. At the same time, I was renovating some as well. And then I kind of understood how to get them. But generally speaking, here's a few things to be careful of, or at least aware of. Article 4. Now, contrary to popular belief, it's a bit of a mouthful for me, and you want to turn it into a HMO, it can actually be done. But it might be a little bit more difficult. So let's just quickly run up a definition of Article 4 just to make a little bit more sense in case nobody knows. Now feel free to screenshot that, or what I'll actually do just to make your life easier is put that in the description below. So when you head over to the description and you smash that like button, you can thank me later. So now that you know what Article 4 is, once you find a property, it's about understanding how you would then either chop that up, change it around, move it around, do whatever you're going to do to make it into a suitable home for prospective tenants, i.e. your end clientele, whilst also weighing up whether houses in that particular area, in regards to being residentials and amenities and transport links, are all sufficient enough to make sure that tenants want to actually live there. So these are all really important things to try and factor. Would you want to live next door to a HMO with 8 people if it's just you, your wife and children? Maybe not. Maybe you wouldn't mind. But these are the questions that you're going to be posed, or your neighbor's going to be posed, if you're looking to turn something into a HMO. And if they turn around and say, we don't want a HMO here, you're going to really struggle with planning. So this is something that you need to be mindful of. But I remember about 5 years ago, random story, people used to just look for 3 to 4 bedroom houses with 2 lounges downstairs, i.e. a lounge and a dining room, you know what I mean, and literally say, okay, let's hang some fire doors up, throw some smoke alarms, and let's call it a 5-bed HMO. Now I personally think that's a little bit risky because there are other factors that you need to look at, and it's not just about making as many rooms as you can from a house. You need to be conscious of people's living conditions. Plus, if you want to stand out from the rest, you want to have as little voids as possible. So en-suites would most likely be required, meaning you're likely going to need to check the joists firsthand and the plumbing to see how feasible and costly this exercise will be. But anyway, Rightmove, estate agents, Zoopla, etc. can all show potential HMOs. They're not on a separate list, they all exist where we're all shopping. And simply looking at the floor plans to see whether you can muster up something will definitely help you understand if there's a potential to turn a house into a HMO. And just another tip, but this is very generic, so if anyone gets excited and starts writing or saying negative keyboard warrior stuff in the comments below, don't. Just don't. But this is a general figure that I've just kind of plucked from here, but it is kind of right. For a refurb, i.e. back to brick, all ensuite renovation, you're looking at around £10,000 a room. So if you had a 3-bedroom end of terrace, for example, and you wanted to turn it into a 5-bed all ensuite, estimate roughly £50,000, rough figure. Right, so if you made it this far, I sincerely hope you've learned something at least from this, and I would be very, very grateful for a like below. It helps the channel out, plus it makes me feel a little bit alive inside as well. But it also helps others learn for free too, especially if you guys can comment as well, because we're all going through tough times. So hopefully you can save yourself some money by learning on this channel for free, and then put that into assets to really go and change your life. Plus, if you're new, maybe consider subscribing if you find this useful. And as I wrap this up and look forward to your comments, I'm going to roll some bloopers for you all as well. So today, but let's move on to, but anyway, let's, to at least after this, fuck's sake, Karen. So just very quickly, firstly, I'm gonna be, so you could even be, so not make simple. I shared with another tenant. Let's start that again. Parking. Now have a think about your clients that you're going to be having. Now have a think about the people that people used to basically just go on, right? People used to, well, they didn't spit on my camera. So if you're interested in this deal analyzer, which isn't like the greatest deal analyzer in the world, but yeah, I can't even say the word, deal analyzer. Yeah, even though you don't say it like that. Follow me on peanuts in my throat. Yeah, throat. Follow me on Instagram. Send me a DM and basically just give me your email address and say you watch this video till the end, you had a peanut in your throat, well, bit of a peanut in your throat, and I want the deal analyzer, please. And obviously if there's any questions in regards to the video, then drop them down below as well. Happy New Year, guys. Thank you.